Yeah. Turn the music up in my headphones. Yeah.
Must you?
Now tell them what we needed, Erica.
Can we start, please?
All we needed was.
All right, we're good, Miss Badu. Don't you need to breathe?
Bounce, 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 bounce.
Gilbert!
Boom! This
No. That's all the talking you're gonna do for the entirety of the podcast. I'm cutting you off.
This is Bounce Episode Podcast. This is your boy G, and this is episode 15 of the Educated Black Siblings Podcast.
EBS. That's who we
You know
are.
what?
Skippy-dippity-boo-ba.
Did you just scat in the...
For the first time in my entire life.
Have you never scattered before?
I don't think so.
Is that the problem? Is it scattered?
Scattered? Scooted.
Okay. This is your boy G, and this is the EBS Podcast. To my left is my sister. Introduce yourself.
What up, everybody? My name is Lindsay, and I am the other half of the Educated Black Siblings. And if you are here today, welcome. Thanks for joining us, and let's get this rolling. Me and Gilbert just sitting here. We're gonna talk about what we talk about. We're gonna do what we do, baby boy. But real quick, let's shout out to all of our social media followers that have been getting at us and tweeting at us and stuff. We love interacting with y'all, and we would like y'all to continue to do that. So please follow us at the EBS Podcast on Twitter and on Instagram. Hit us up, like a picture, like a tweet, retweet us. We'll retweet you, and we'll have a whole little thing going, little dialogue and stuff.
That's right. That is, as we've always said, that is the point of the podcast, right? Me and my sister are going to have these conversations with each other, but we're inviting you guys into these conversations so that we can build a community and talk with each other. Speaking of, so I know that there are some weird things that kind of throw off podcast analytics, especially when it comes to demographics, but I was looking at the stats for the last podcast, and I have to mention this. It says that we have listeners in Canada. In Canada. No, don't. They're listening.
Oh,
like,
sorry.
Don't mock the Canadian anthem.
I was trying to make them feel welcome.
Oh, well, go ahead. Do it.
Oh, Canada.
Oh, your voice is heavenly.
That's all I know that song.
So, if that is true, and you're listening to the podcast, and you are in Canada or any other foreign country, I know that we always extend this invitation, but I really, really want you to reach out to us because I think that that's dope.
Yeah.
Like, how did you find out about the podcast?
Send us some Canadian bacon.
That's just ham.
Well, then I don't want ham. I'm not a ham fan, but send me actual bacon from Canada.
And then also, notice that we had a few downloads from North Korea.
Yeah, we did.
Which is concerning because we do talk about Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. All respect to him.
Apologies for...
These are just jokes, Kim.
For what we said.
So
you're welcome anytime to come on the podcast.
Right into the podcast. We would love to
talk to you about Donald.
So what's been going on in your life, Lindsay?
Man, so much, and yet nothing at all. What's been going on with you?
I can dig that. You know what? I think you summarized it.
That's about it right now.
Perfectly. Prayers out to Rick Ross.
Oh yeah.
At the time of recording this podcast, Rick Ross, was still in critical condition, on some form of life support. So prayers out to Rick Ross. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it makes me sad.
Sticking. That doesn't sound like you're sad at all.
Was that? That was like a shout out.
That was a shout out to Rick.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Black Panther, which we're going to talk about later. And stick around for the whole podcast. Our top 5 this week is going to be our top 5 best or our top 5 favorite movie villains. I'm low-key excited about this list. All right, so you guys know that we do deal with serious topics as well as pop culture on this podcast. There's no real way to segue into it, so we're just going to jump into it, right? School shootings. What is going on, man? Like, we mentioned the thing that happened in Florida, and, you know, that was just crazy to me. And I don't like talking about this subject. I don't want to politicize the subject. But the topic has been coming up a lot about arming our teachers as a solution, which we have a unique perspective on this podcast because our family is literally from grandma down to my sister is filled with educators,
Yeah.
right? So we have a unique love and thoughts on teachers and education system in general. But this thought of arming teachers is really just troubling to me.
Yeah, man. Like Gilbert said, I have a unique perspective because I am a teacher. I don't think the solution here is black and white. I don't think there's one specific thing you need to do. And again, not to politicize it, but clearly something needs to be done. This morning when we were talking a little bit before the show, I mentioned to Gilbert that there was a school shooting yesterday that was trending on Twitter for like 3 hours and then got pushed off of Twitter at Central Michigan University. 2 people were shot and killed. And Gilbert didn't even know about it. He didn't even hear about it because, one, that's how quickly the news cycle works now, but we're becoming numb to school shootings, which I think is a very, very dangerous, weird place for us to be. Like, I remember being in high school, like, anytime something like that happened, it's like the world stopped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But as far as arming teachers, as a teacher, I want no part of that. Like 0%.
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day, and may I have permission to do just a brief thought experiment?
Sure.
Because I want to prove why, I want to illustrate why I think it's a bad idea.
Okay.
Right? I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Why do you teach?
Why do I teach?
Why do you teach?
I believe that teaching is what God has called me to do, and I want to impact the lives of young adolescents, if you will.
Would you say that you love your students?
I do.
Have you ever had a student call you mom?
I have.
Yeah, I think that's a common experience for teachers, right? And I think that most teachers, there are some teachers that teach just for the paycheck that are there, just because that's their career, right? But I think most
bad
teachers,
choice, boo-boo.
It is, right? But I think most teachers are going to give some variant of that answer. Either it's their calling, they love children, they want to impact the lives of children, etc. The reason that I'm bringing that up is because when you look at these school shootings, like, it's not a member of ISIS or some guy that broke out of a psychiatric hospital that is shooting children. It's the children.
Yeah.
So what we're asking our teachers to do, we're asking people, hey, think about this. It's traumatizing to take a human life, period. You talk to any person, that's why PTSD is a thing, right? And these are trained soldiers, right? So you're asking a teacher who loves children, who loves their students, to be prepared for a scenario in which they would have to pull out a gun and shoot one of their students to protect their other students. Like, that's a ridiculous, like, and again, I know that I deal with anxiety, right? So I know that people process stuff differently than I do, but when I have to prepare for something, even if it's not going to happen, for me, I go through the mental state of whatever, like I imagine it, right? So you're asking our teachers to perpetually be in a state, like we do fire drills. Mm-hmm. You're asking our teachers to prepare for scenarios in which they would have to shoot and kill one of their students. Like, that's bananas.
Yeah, it's so weird to think about. Legit, in lieu of all of the school shootings that have been happening, we're having literally on Monday, we're having our second lockdown drill within the last 2 months, where we're going to have to like take time throughout school and do our lockdown procedures as if there were a shooter on campus. Mm. And I can't imagine if we were to arm teachers, the drills and the actual mental checks and things that we would have to go through just to make that a viable option. Yeah. It's just insane to me. Also, and I know a lot of people made this point before, but it's like, who's buying these guns? Bruh. What funding? Like, what do we? I don't have enough money to buy pencils right now. Like, what? Like, what money are you using to buy guns?
Bruh, my wife worked in a school district once where they gave her a package of printer paper at the beginning of the year. And they said, once you run out of that paper, you got to buy your own paper. The school cannot afford to buy you paper.
It's rough out here in these streets.
Paper's like $10 a bag.
I can't.
I can't. So you're telling me that our teachers can't, like school districts can't afford paper, but you're going to buy every teacher a weapon. I have an answer for you. Guess what?
What is it?
Florida just introduced a bill, and the answer to that question is yes, they are willing to do that. Florida introduced a bill to their Senate saying that they are proposing a $67 million program to train teachers to carry guns. This would include paying for the weapon, paying for 132 hours of training to kill your students, and
Gilbert.
I'm just being real. That's what it would be, right?
Yeah.
So they've actually introduced this bill. Now, this isn't law, right? It hasn't gone. They have to vote on it, etc. But people are really seriously considering arming the teachers.
I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I think we're smarter than that.
Like, and man, I don't want to harp on this, but it's like, what does this mean for young black and brown students with teachers whom we already feel are like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, I know.
Like, it's only a matter of time before we see the news story: teacher shot unarmed black student whom he thought had a weapon.
Oh yeah.
Like, is that what we want to do?
Like I said, like young minority children out here getting discriminated against with little things like dress code and tardies and stuff. So now you want to take these same people that already view them in a different light, put a weapon in their hands.
Furthermore,
there's
a video, because my solution to the problem, I no longer believe this is the solution, but my solution was, hey, just be like our old high school, have armed guards on every campus, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently, at the shooting in Florida,
oh yeah,
there was an armed guard.
But this man,
they showed a video of him hearing the gunshots, looking towards the gunshots, and then saying,
"No, not today."
That. So let me ask you a question: if an armed police officer, who's in a school whose job is to run into the line of fire,
say it again,
says, "No, that sounds like an AR-15. I got a pistol. I'm not going in there." Mm-hmm. Right? You're expecting somebody with a degree in education. Like,
not today.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that has 132 hours of training. That sounds like a lot. I guarantee you that police officer had more than 132 hours of training.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Just logistically, it doesn't make sense. Like we're coming up on STAR testing, and that's the state test in Texas. But when I tell you, Gilbert, like the amount of training that I have to go through just to give a standardized test, like I'm not allowed to leave that test in the room by itself. I can't let the kids talk during the test, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Logistically, how am I supposed to maneuver and move around my room knowing that there's a gun just there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know, but I'm not there for it. And I don't think it'll pass, but it's fine.
In America, we are so opposed to even the slightest idea of gun control that legitimately the answer to killing children in schools to America is
let's get more guns.
Let's get more guns. The solution is more guns.
The solution to gun control is no control.
Just give everybody a gun.
Everybody. They said, let's make schools they're a gun-free zone. Everybody has guns. Everyone. Let's just even the playing field. Let's just do that.
So now, I'm going to stop talking about this.
Yes.
But play the scenario out, right? Have you ever heard of a gunfight? So now instead of one shooter in the school, you've got a student who's not trained to use a weapon that's mowing people down, which is terrible imagery, but that's what's happening, right? Now you've got a teacher who is afraid for his or her life, who's afraid for his or her student's life, and now they've got a gun, and they're trying to shoot at the student. Now you just introduce crossfire into a scenario that doesn't have crossfire. What about
there's so many reasons why this shouldn't be a thing.
So what happens when the teacher shoots at the assailant, misses because they only have 132 hours of training, and it hits another student? Is that teacher now
because
liable?
They're hired to teach first graders how to read? Because we're not Navy SEALs. Like, what are we doing? But it's fine.
Is that can we put a Navy SEAL in every school?
Maybe that's what it is.
Because, okay.
Here we go. Do the scenario. Come on.
No. I'm not doing the scenario.
I can see his wheels turning in his head. It's phenomenal.
I'm thinking about Black Panther. So we saw Black Panther, and it was an amazing movie. We're going to talk about it later.
Yes.
Right? But one of the things that watching the Black Panther taught me is that
you want to strip the strength of the Black Panther away.
We need to strip the strength. We need to strip the strength of the guns away from American people.
From the schools. There's too many.
There's too many guns. Too many guns. Schools. If we put a Black Panther in every school, like that's what it is.
Oh my God!
We don't need the teachers to have guns. Teachers should have the heart-shaped herb. Every teacher should be allowed to take the heart-shaped herb.
Only if all of our ceremonies look like the Challenge Day ceremony.
Miss Moses, I would like to challenge my grade on.
There will be no challenge today. Oh no!
So what I learned about myself from watching the Black Panther is that I truly and honestly believe that our Navy SEALs are superheroes.
Yes.
Because I watch Marvel movies, right?
Uh-huh.
And I've seen aliens, I've seen people with superpowers, and I'm always like, yeah, Thor's gonna win. Iron Man is gonna win. There's no problem.
Yeah.
But when Killmonger walked out there and they said he's a Black Ops Navy SEAL, I said, T'Challa finna lose, bro.
Bye, T'Challa.
Superpowers aside, have you ever seen? And then T'Challa looked at him and was like, "Yield." I said, "Brother, Navy SEAls don't yield."
Stop this. You
are about to
the death.
lose. I'm not sure how we got here,
It's okay.
but I'm gonna roll.
We're gonna keep going. It's fine.
So Black Panther.
So Black Panther.
Because that other topic was making me sad. Black Panther makes me happy. I saw the movie.
Listen,
It was.
I work in a predominantly white school district. Do you understand how hard it was this week to not yell? Stop talking to me, colonizer. Do you know how many times?
Colonizer.
Oh my gosh, that movie was phenomenal. I have seen it twice. I will be going for a third time this evening. So,
Are you really going to see it again tonight?
yes, that is what I'm doing right now. Is finalizing those plans. I'm trying to see it in IMAX, but my friend is low key slacking.
So it's safe to say that you enjoyed the Black Panther.
I thoroughly enjoyed the Black Panther. I did. For so many reasons, but overall, I just think that it's a top-notch Marvel film.
It was a really good Marvel film.
I'm there for it.
So I definitely enjoyed it as a superhero movie. Like, I mean, the pacing was really good to me. The story was on par with any other story. It was kind of deeper because they had the whole family aspect to it.
Yeah.
Oh snap! Have we spoiled anything yet?
Distinct of the Black.
No, I don't think we have.
No.
So my apologies for just jumping into the movie. I know it's only been out for 2 weeks. Maybe we'll hold off on talking like specific.
Here's the thing. I've heard so many other like outlets that are like, if you haven't seen it by now,
It's only been out for a week.
but it's only been like 2 weeks.
This has to be the most spoiled movie on social media ever.
So we did the podcast. Well, our last podcast we did the day Black Panther came out, right? Mm-hmm. So we hadn't seen it yet. I think by the next day, almost everything in that movie had been spoiled,
Which is crazy.
which is bizarre.
It is bizarre.
But
So let's not talk about specific plot details or our favorite moments about the film, because again, I don't want to spoil it for our listeners. But just meaning wise, like there were a lot of like, I don't want to get into all of like the minute details, but like Ryan Coogler is amazing. Like there was
Very
there's
intelligent man.
no spoiler, right? But there was a scene in a casino where T'Challa and two other characters are in the casino, and I was watching Ryan Coogler break down this scene, and then he just like casually mentioned, and he was like, and by the way, she's wearing a green dress, she's wearing a red dress, T'Challa's wearing a black suit. This symbolizes the Pan-African flag. I was like, what?
So many, even like, I watched another interview where he was talking about all the little like shout outs and references, like the warriors, how there were actual like African women warriors that were just like that, and that's the garb they wore. So many little things.
The symbolism, like even because in that scene, this scene is in the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler. But
Yeah.
Pause or fast forward 30 seconds. But there's in the scene where she blows her cover or whatever. Even people were talking about like this is like what we as African Americans go through all the time. Like we are afraid that there's gonna be a moment where we're gonna slip up and our blackness is gonna be revealed. And then I was just like, man,
it's a little deep.
It's super deep.
I hadn't thought about that.
But it's also a Marvel movie.
It's
And
also a
fantastic.
Marvel movie.
I'm talking about the esoteric stuff because I don't want to get into the details of the
minute
movie.
things,
But
yeah.
look, I'm going to tell you this. We do this podcast once every fortnight. It'll be 2 fortnights since the Black Panther has come out. The next time, I'm talking about this movie.
We're going
on
to
the
spoil everything in the movie next time. It's fine.
Also, the Black Joy Police have been out.
Listen, we understand that A Wrinkle in Time is coming out.
Bruh.
But how many superheroes on A Wrinkle in Time? Let's
0.
talk about it. Yo, but did you read A Wrinkle in Time? Okay. So, I'm sorry. Oprah, I love you. This much? I don't know, Oprah. But I'm tired of Twitter making me feel bad. Like, if you got to show out for the same way for Wrinkle in Time you did for Black Panther. No. I'm still probably going to go see it. But don't make me feel bad.
I'm with you, man. So something that did come up a lot. Now I'm not calling these people Black Joy Police because this is a solid thing, right? So we went to Baylor University. Shout out to the Bears, Sikkim Bears. But I don't know if it's still this way, but there was a large contingent of either first generation or first or second generation Africans, like actual African students at Baylor. So there's a large African population. The reason I say that is because your social media following and network is largely contingent on who you knew from college, high school, etc. So needless to say, I have a lot of African people in my Facebook, right? So what I was noticing is that there was this conversation that was happening, and it was black people, black Americans, we are really, really we're ready to pounce on a Bruno Mars or a Justin Timberlake when anything that could even be conceived as cultural appropriation pops up, right? But there was this school of thought going around that was saying, well, wait a minute, because you're dressing up in traditional African garb for this movie, is that cultural appropriation, right? And I saw this conversation going back and forwards, and I don't want to get into that conversation on the podcast because I think that if you feel like that's cultural appropriation, I think that there's
you're warranted in feeling
that way. So I'm not getting into that debate right now. But what I did start to think about, especially tying in with my my thought on the last podcast of how do I be unapologetically black, right? It's like Lindsay will tell you I really, really like history, right? So if you ask me about Hebrew culture, I can talk to you for an hour on Hebrew culture. If you ask me about Norse culture or Irish culture or Roman culture, like these are all cultures that I'm really, really interested in. So I've studied them. I could talk to you about them.
Yeah.
Right? But I thought about it the other day. It was like, what would I say if somebody asked me what is the culture of the African diaspora or just Black American?
Yeah.
What is Black American culture? And that's the question that I have for you, Lindsay, and for our listeners is what is our culture? Because we're not as much as I hate to say it, we're not African, right? It's like, I know that we have African roots, but this Black American experience is its own thing now. You know what I mean? And I think it's very, very important for us to be in touch with our African roots because that's a part of our culture. But there's some unique things that we're doing here in Black America that are our culture.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like what
are those things?
What is our culture?
I don't know, man. I don't want to go straight to music, but I mean,
I think that's fine to start with. So a lot of people will jump to entertainment type stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you got jazz, blues, rock, doo-wop, soul,
Doo-wop.
doo-wop, doo-wop. But no, hip hop, obviously, right? These are all things that are a part of Black culture, and I think that's fine. But what else? Like,
I mean, cooking parts of animals that weren't supposed to be cooked.
Yeah,
like
chitlins,
which
pig feet
should be illegal to cook chitlins.
And then there's other stuff like, so you would consider Passover a part of Jewish culture, right?
Yes.
Then I think that I don't celebrate Kwanzaa, but Kwanzaa is something that was created by Black Americans.
Is Kwanzaa not African?
No. It's a Pan-African holiday.
I'm just stating my ignorance on Kwanzaa. I don't know nothing about Kwanzaa.
Or something like Juneteenth. Like we celebrate Juneteenth. That's a Black thing, right? And then
I also think that we need to make a bigger deal of that than we do.
Of Juneteenth?
Yes. Like just like.
Why do you say that we need to make a bigger deal of Juneteenth?
I don't know. I just feel like it should be more recognized more by us as a nation, but I guess that makes sense why we don't focus on it.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean? But
I'm just saying all of those things, like, and maybe everybody out there is already thinking of these things as a part of Black culture, but it's like these are things that's our culture. You know what I mean? And I even thought about it even further, like when you get into subcultures, like for us, if you think about somas or curry specifically, right? You think about India. But when I thank God for my last job because I had to interact with a lot of people from India, and they'll straight out tell you North Indian culture is not the same as South Indian culture.
Yeah.
Their curry is different from our curry. We eat different stuff, right? So there are even subcultures within African American culture. Like, so for me, the second line band, that's a part of Black culture.
Yeah.
Like I know that that's something that's specific to New Orleans, right? Or specific to the South, the Creole South, but having a second line band at a funeral or at a wedding, etc., that's a part
normal.
of our culture. Yeah. That's a cultural thing for us. Or even the repast, like that's something that I think.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that that other people don't do that.
Right, but that's a part of our culture. So Anyway, I want you guys out there that are listening to help us with this, right? What is black culture? What makes up our culture?
Us.
You know what I mean? And let's talk about that. I think that sort of stuff is important.
That also just makes me sad that, and I mean, there's nothing that we can do about that. I mean, shout out ancestors, but I mean, like, it makes me sad that was taken from us as people, and I don't want to like get super into that, but I'm mad that we don't have that to like look back on like the generations worth of ancestry to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think what you're saying is important, and this is not me poo-pooing on African culture, right? I think that as a part of us celebrating us, we have to reach back and celebrate our African roots as well. But
yes,
I'm just saying that there's specific stuff that we, as Black
Americans,
as children of the diaspora, even just people in Puerto Rico and Jamaica, etc., like this products of the slave trade, right?
Yeah.
We have our own culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even check this out. This is something that, so I Googled it. I Googled what is black culture, right? And there's some stuff on there. First of all, Wikipedia is insane. But there's some stuff on there that I hadn't really thought about as unique to black culture, but it kind of is.
Tell me.
Play family. You ever notice how, like, in the black
like
community,
fake aunties?
Everybody your uncle.
I'm not doing
everybody
this.
your auntie.
We have probably, like, it's, well, I was maybe 15 when I realized TK wasn't actually our auntie.
Yeah. Or like my best friend, again, I don't know, white people, you guys tell me if this is not unique to black culture. I'm just going off of Wikipedia, right? That's what Wikipedia said, right? But it's like my best friend, like Joella calls him uncle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like we have cousins. Like if there's a cousin that is more than 10 years older than you in my family, that ain't your cousin.
Yeah.
That's your uncle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know. There's like the whole family dynamic is different.
But...
You know what I mean? Like, anyway, tell us what you guys think about black culture. Speaking of black culture, Jay-Z dropped a new song.
No. So DJ Khaled dropped a new song.
Who?
DJ Khaled?
Another one?
We the best!
No, Jay-Z and Beyonce dropped a new song.
They surely did. And Future limped on there as well.
Future tried to ruin the song.
Future tried to stop the joy that Beyonce was spreading.
First of all, DJ Khaled's ad-libs on that song trash.
Everything that's not Beyonce or Jay-Z on that song is trash.
Everything about Future on that song is trash. Jay-Z reminds me of that uncle that used to hoop, and he was like a hoop star. And like at the family reunion, he likes to come around and show everybody that he still shoots better than them, even though he can't dunk anymore. You know what I mean?
He can still knock down a shot.
Like he sounded so lazy on that song, but he was still rapping better than the majority of people.
It's fine.
But you could tell he didn't put a lot of effort into it. But I think that song is gonna come and go. It
already has.
It's not really a hit.
Already has. I bumped it all day yesterday, and I'm like, okay, I'm over it because that beat was.
The beat was kind of trash. I'm not even gonna lie.
But there was a lot of like jabs being taken by people. I feel like you were telling me something about Jay-Z and how he was throwing jabs at somebody. I don't remember who the Jay-Z beef was with.
Not on this song.
Didn't he in this song?
I mean, he was talking about that big receipt
or
that
social media things.
Yeah, there was a rumor going around that Beyonce might have been talking about Tiffany Haddish on.
That's what I was going to get at. Like I didn't know that was a thing, but Tiffany Haddish like addressed it on Twitter.
Yeah, but she was like, if I got to sign an NDA to hang out with the queen, I'm all for it. Yeah. But apparently she was like...
but she was like, but that means what I said was true.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's fine. Main point is Beyonce is everything. And B, if you want to drop a rap album, we're all here for it.
We are here for
it. We're here for anything that you do. Which she's about to be at Coachella. And I said at the beginning of the year, I'm waiting for that new Beyonce. So this may be...
You think she would drop something new before the concert? Or the festival?
Isn't the festival in April?
I don't know when.
I think Coachella is in April. I don't know. Just be on your toes. She's been rocking her braids. So that's how you know she was in the kitchen cooking. So I mean... So y'all... Gilbert... Show notes. Gilbert lit some incense before the show started, and they are wafting into my nostrils. Why are you doing this?
It's a vibe.
That's not the vibe that I want to set for the podcast today.
It's a vibe.
That's not my vibe. But anyways, yeah, if Beyonce drops something, I'll be pleasantly pleased, but not surprised.
So if she does drop something, she needs to drop it very soon, probably, because Russia is about to kill all of us. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the
Segue
news.
for the ages.
But the Cold War never ended. Vladimir Putin, first of all, Vladimir Putin is running for re-election, which is a farce. Like, I think we all know that
you got it, Vlad. You're good. You're fine.
You've been the president for the last 20 years.
It's okay,
like,
Vlad.
how does that even... Then there was a period, because Russia's rules are like you can't be consecutive for a certain amount of terms. So like he stepped down and was like the prime minister for a little bit and then jumped right back into being the president. But anyway, hey, Kim, if you're listening, no diss
to your man.
Your man Putin. Don't tell him I said anything.
We're neutral.
Yo, if I look at the podcast statistics next month and I see one from Russia,
the podcast is over. The podcast is over. It's done.
Because
bye.
I don't believe that Kim Jong-un can shoot a missile over here, but when Putin said it this week,
what we've seen,
I believed him. But no, that's what. So he unveiled 5 new weapons that they have. One of which is a hypersonic warhead that can travel 1 to 5 miles per second.
Okay.
Right.
Wait.
The other one.
What?
Yeah, the other one.
No.
Hypersonic, my G.
My brain just exploded.
Do you remember Sonic? Do you remember Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yes.
Imagine that, but a missile.
Hyper.
Yes. All right. So then he also has underwater nuclear torpedoes.
Of course.
But his defense is that the only reason that I'm doing this is because back in the 80s we signed this agreement that we weren't going to like nuclear proliferation, right? We were trying to ramp down on weapons and all that. The United States backed out of that deal, and they were like, hey, we're going to put missile defense systems in Eastern Europe just in case. That made Putin mad. So all of these weapons that he's unveiling is a jab to the United States because all of these weapons would evade any known missile defenses that we have today. So the one that people are concerned about, right? So he unveiled 5. Of the 4 of them, all of these military pundits on the internet were saying, yeah, America has something similar to that. We're fine, right? Yeah. But the 5th one, we do not have. We do not have. The 5th one is a nuclear-powered nuclear warhead cruise missile.
I'm not doing this.
Right? So it's nuclear. It has an atomic engine on it.
Okay.
Which Putin says that means that it can run indefinitely. It'll never run out of fuel. Right? And it's a cruise missile, which means that it flies at low altitudes and it can be controlled remotely. So Putin shows this video of it dipping around mountains and it's like got a little remote control. He's like, so when you launch your little missile defense systems, we're gonna steer our missile out of the way.
On by it.
Right? And then he showed a video of a bomb, like of the warhead coming towards Florida. So 2 things about that. Our military command center we have a military command center in Florida, but more importantly, Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate is in Florida. I think Putin was sending jabs at Trump.
I mean.
And as of this morning, I checked his Twitter. Trump ain't said nothing about it.
I feel like this should have been bigger news.
I just ranted for like 10 minutes about Russia's weapons.
It's okay. It's fine. No. I feel like this should have been bigger news. Like, I didn't know about this till you mentioned this to me. Maybe because I've low-key been trying to pull back from any political things because it was consuming my brain. But I feel like this should have been bigger news. I feel like this is a big deal. But how are we supposed to respond to that? Or do we respond to that? So I don't want Donald responding to that.
Internally, and you know what? I'm trying to check to see if he said anything today. But if he hasn't, he was probably
scared.
No, not scared. Somebody probably told him it's not
like, hey,
don't do that.
Don't
please
poke the bear, please.
But the internal response is going to be to develop defenses for these things. Right. I wholeheartedly believe. Again, most military pundits were saying, yeah, that's fine that they're unveiling this, but we have the same stuff. We're just.
And I would like to believe that as the U.S.
broadcast to the world that we have the stuff.
Yeah.
But some of the military pundits were saying, yeah, we've got the hypersonic missile too, but it's not supposed to be be available for use until 2022, and stuff like that. And so I don't know. It's scary, but it's just like this is Cold War posturing. Like this is what we did for the entire. Like the latter part of the 70s and the 80s is that we'd be like, yo, we've got this nuclear bomb that can do this. And the United States is like, yo, well, we got this nuclear bomb that can do this.
Go ahead and show you this.
And I don't know, man. It trips me out because it's like, I'm not a liberal or a conservative, but in times like this, I'm like, yo, I need a Bush in office. You know what I mean? Like, I need somebody who's with the smoke. You know what I mean? Like, and if Russia is gonna pop off, I don't want Obama in office. I want a Bush in office, but I don't want.
But we don't want a Trump.
I don't want a Trump
because we'll all die.
Like, I don't want somebody that's gonna push the button. Like, but I want somebody that's not afraid to push the button.
Yeah.
You know? But low key, Obama killed
I was gonna say, let's talk about them drones.
That's true.
Obama was smiling at us while he was low key taking people out,
taking them out. That's fair.
Out.
But anyway, so Russia is tripping. So if
nothing new.
If you pray, you should pray for that. You should.
If you pray,
you should pray for that. You know who prays?
Who prays?
Snoop Dogg. So Snoop Dogg. I don't know if
have y'all ever just hated somebody with your whole heart?
I don't know if you've heard this, but Snoop Dogg is curating a gospel album.
Y'all, Snoop dropped,
and I am there for it.
Snoop dropped 5 gospel singles.
I'm there for it.
And we listened to one.
And it was amazing.
And I'm there for it. At first, I was like, nah, I can't have you disrespecting things like that, Snoop. But I'm there for it. Like, he was being so, like, it was so real and, like, genuine. I'm here.
But that's what makes me mad, though, about Christian culture, is that a lot of times it'll be like I've heard Christians be like, oh, you can't have Christian rap because rap is of the world. It's like every Chris Tomlin song is a punk rock song. Shut up.
Stop.
Like, what are you talking about? Music is music. But like, I think somebody like Snoop Dogg having a line in a song saying that all I'm doing is smoking all this weed when I know in reality I need to be on my knees.
Yeah.
Like, it's like people have been, oh, that's not gospel or whatever. That's real. That's the struggle that the majority of us are going through.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the weed, but the struggle of being in the world, being like a fleshly person, but knowing that there's something else that we're supposed to do that we should be doing. I think that having a rapper, somebody whose life has been on Front Street, and you know that he's been like out there doing what you consider heathenist stuff, but seeing him transition and be like, look, I'm not there yet, but I want to give the Lord glory. I want it, like, that's awesome to me.
There's no offense, but I would much rather have somebody be out in the open about the problems and the sins that they struggle with, but they're like, in spite of this, I'm still working on my relationship with God and my walk with Christ, than to have these fake televangelist preachers and musicians that come out here and they act holier than thou and they sing the way that they do, but yet they're the first ones with the scandals.
Right.
They're the first ones stealing money. They're the first ones ripping people off. And it's like, no, like I'm not there for it. So I'm all on board for genuine, straight up people that are willing to be honest. Like, we all struggle in our walk. Because nobody is perfect. Like, that's literally humanity. Like, no one is perfect. So why not have that represented in song?
I'm with it, man.
I'm there for it, Snoop. I'm there for your transformation.
And then aside, this is a random tangent, but over the last 3 weeks, if it hasn't been Erykah Badu or Bob Marley, I really haven't been listening to it. Like, I listened to Erykah Badu's entire discography, and I've listened to Bob Marley, like, no lie.
We know.
Every day.
Well, I know.
Like, I listen to Bob Marley every single day.
He listened to it so much that his 2-year-old child sings Bob Marley, and it makes me smile.
But here's the thing. I'm listening to Bob Marley. I don't understand why some of his songs aren't classified as gospel records. Because, like, there's in One Love, he says, let's all give praise and thanks to the Lord because everything is going to be all right. Like, that whole song is about uplifting people and focusing on the good things that God has done for you. It sounds like a gospel song to me.
Yeah.
Like, we make these weird delineations between stuff, but I'm there for Snoop Dogg talking about his relationship with the Lord. I think that that's going to help somebody.
There's a lot of artists, and I don't think we're really going here, but Paramore is my favorite band of all time. And the reason why I liked Paramore was that in like 2004, they did this interview where somebody was like, are y'all a Christian band? They're like, no, we're not a Christian band. We're just a band full of Christians. But you can hear like heavy religious undertones like in their music. Like, you can be spiritual and show your relationship with God and all these things in your music without being labeled as Christian or gospel or whatever. Because I honestly, in my opinion, I think that that pigeonholed you to a certain audience.
Yeah.
Like Chance the Rapper dropped an album where he had a full-blown worship break in the middle of his album, you know what I mean? Like Chance, like Blessings, is like he references biblical stories and metaphors throughout his entire discography, you know what I mean? But he's not a quote-unquote Christian rapper. He's not a Lecrae. He's not an Andy Mineo, you know what I mean? So
be a rapper who's a Christian.
Yeah, or be any type of musician that's a Christian. You don't necessarily have to be a Christian musician.
That's true, because like as a believer, like if you truly are a believer, that has to bleed over into the stuff that you do.
But then like I said, I think it's just like a judgmental thing. So wasn't it Nicki Minaj that did a gospel song?
She might have.
Wasn't it her? I can't remember. I think it was Nicki Minaj. I don't know. I just, at the end of the day, we need to stop judging people, man. Listen to the music.
Like if Snoop wants to start Crips for Christ, do it. Save some people.
Oh my God. Crips
if there
for Christ.
If there are any Bloods listening, first of all, Suwu, but if there are any Bloods,
no.
If there are any Bloods listening, I need to know, and you're a Christian, like,
how does that work?
Are you a Christian or like, can you say this?
You playing the Bryce?
Can you?
You taking communion? Where my Catholic thugs at? Where y'all at?
Do you go to Birch on Christmas?
I'm not doing this. I'm not.
I gotta go to Birch on Christmas to celebrate. To celebrate. To celebrate the birth of Bryce.
To celebrate the birth of Bryce. All right, shout out to all of our Crips and Blood listeners out there. Please tweet us.
This is gonna be the first podcast that I edit. What
you're gonna look at the analytics and we're gonna rise in Compton.
Our podcast is done.
It's fine.
It's over. Do we have sponsors today?
Our today's podcast is being sponsored by the Bloods. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Also by Dallas First Baptist. So, shout out to Little Mount Zion.
Where do we go from there?
Missionary Volunteer Baptist Church. Yeah, so there's that. All right. I'm choking. Sorry.
It's fine. It's the Lord trying to smite you. That's what it is. So what else is going on?
There's nothing. I'm done. Let's go to the top 5. I'm done with the podcast.
That's fine.
Do you know who Jason Derulo is, right?
Jason Derulo. Yes.
You also know that he used to date Jordan Sparks?
Yes.
Did you see what happened?
No.
All right. So this is the definition of simping, right?
Simping.
So Jason Derulo used to date Jordan Sparks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Sparks they broke up. She has since moved on.
Is she like pregnant?
Yes. So she posts an Instagram picture with her pregnant belly, and her baby daddy. They all together. And she says something like, "I'm so glad to be bringing this little boy into the world with you. He's going to be a king. We're raising a king," etc. Well, she didn't say all that, but she was just like, she was expressing her happiness about her pregnancy, right?
Okay.
Jason Derulo comments, verified account, blue check, comments in the comments and says, "I wish that was my boy. All of my songs are about you."
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. There's no way he did. Prove it.
And is that okay? Like, can you do that? Like, let's take Jason Derulo out of it, right? First of all,
no, that's not okay.
Should you be commenting on your ex's Instagrams and such?
Somebody check on Jason. That boo needs a hug. No, I'm a proponent of, once you break up with somebody, you should delete them off of all of your social media, because that's just like a trap for failure. Like, what is the point of having an ex still on or following you? Because we friends. What you need to be friends for? You got enough friends. You need to be friends with your ex. But did he really post that? Because that makes me sad. It makes me very, very sad. Also, who is she engaged to?
That's not important. The important part is the simping. And yes, he did really post that, which I think is hilarious. But
I didn't. I feel bad.
Why do you feel bad?
Like, he shouldn't have done that, but he's hurting. And she's just posting her joy and happiness on Instagram, rubbing it in his face.
You know who else is hurting? Hurt Bay. But you haven't watched the Hurt Bay video.
I refuse. I refuse to be a part of that.
You're going to watch it, and we're going to talk about it the next time.
Everybody watch the Hurt Bay Part 2. And we'll talk about it next fortnight. It's fine. Okay.
Are there any... So I listened to the... whose album was that? It was so great that I forgot the person. Oh, Tory Lanez. I listened to the new Tory Lanez album, and it wasn't good. So, it wasn't bad. It just also wasn't good. So I'm there. Are there any albums that you're just anticipating for this year?
That I'm just anticipating?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Who's supposed to be dropping this year?
Drake, hopefully. Right? Kanye, hopefully.
Kanye dropping.
I hope so.
I'm scared for that. Because I don't know mentally where Kanye is. I don't know what's going on with Kanye. I have no idea. I just have my fingers crossed that Beyonce is going to do something. And I really want that to happen. But that's going to be within the next month and a half, I feel like.
Okay, well, we'll play it by ear, I guess. We'll definitely talk about a Beyonce project on the album if it comes out. So, I mean, on the podcast if it comes out. So, why does the black community like Beyonce so much?
Because she's everything. That was the next question. Like, What do you mean?
Okay, I'm just wondering because I'm thinking about like there's no doubt that if a Beyonce topic dropped, like we would definitely be talking about it. And I'm just like, why do we love her so much?
I don't know. I was listening to Top Off, and in my head, I was like, man, this song's low-key trash. Then I was like, man, Jay's kind of phoning it in, even though he's relevant. And Beyonce's on that song for maybe 36 seconds. But once she came on, I was like, I'm here for everything this is. And I'm biased, but her creativity, everything about her is phenomenal.
I was about to ask for people that are black that don't like Beyonce to reach out, but I think we've done that before, and they did, and I didn't like it.
They can also be quiet, so I don't want to hear from you. You can tweet Gilbert individually.
All right,
you're not welcome here.
So our top
there will be
no challenge today. The strength of the Black Panther has been stripped away.
The strength of Beyonce
has been
on
stripped
the podcast
away.
Top five.
All right, so our top 5 this week is our top 5 favorite movie villains. You have honorable mentions?
I do have honorable mentions.
What's your honorable mentions, girl?
Let me pull up my list. You know how.
So my honorable mentions are...
Technology works.
My first honorable mention is Darth Maul.
Oh my God, Darth Maul is on my honorable mentions.
Darth Maul, like the reason I give him honorable mention and not the list is because he legit he didn't speak in the Phantom Menace, which also kind of speaks to how gangster he is. But like most of what I love about Darth Maul comes from like the extended Star Wars canon, like the Clone Wars show, etc. But Darth Maul and Obi-Wan have one of the best fight scenes in cinematic history in the Phantom Menace. So he's on my honorable mentions list. Kylo Ren is also on my honorable mentions list. I really, really like Kylo Ren as a villain, but I think we got to give him a little bit more time before he's like best villain of all time. And I also kind of need to see how the trilogy plays out.
Okay.
And then Bane is on my honorable mentions list.
Ooh, Bane.
Like Tom Hardy did an excellent job as Bane. And then my last honorable mention, we definitely got to give this guy more time to cook, but Killmonger is on my honorable mentions list.
I thought we weren't gonna.
I couldn't put him in the list because Black Panther just came out.
Yeah.
But I'm honorably mentioning him because he was dope.
Fair.
Next.
All right, so Darth Maul is also in my honorable mentions. I was young when... What year did Phantom Menace come out? Does anybody know? It had to be early 2000s, right? So I was young. I was old enough to know what was going on, but I was still young. I just know that Darth Maul was terrifying to me. Like, that red mask was too much for my life. But I remember vividly that fight scene. So I loved everything about him. I thought he was cool, and his lightsaber was on point. Also, I had to look up how to say his name, so I think it's Hans Landa, I don't know. But homeboy that was the villain in Inglourious Bastards.
He was good.
That opening scene of that movie still terrifies me to this day. He was absolutely terrifying, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Next up is Pennywise, and I'm talking about Pennywise from It, the most recent It. Even though the original one was also creepy, I think there's something about that Skarsgård guy that looks terrifying.
Is the scene that you're talking about from Inglourious Bastards?
You know what I'm talking about?
Is that the one
where he sits on the?
Where he's sitting down. Man, that is a good. You're right.
Chilling. That was honestly when I made this list. That was the first thing I thought about. So maybe he should have actually been on the list.
That's really good.
But that was one of the most chilling scenes I've ever witnessed in my life.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Then next up, he who shall not be named, or Voldemort. This fool terrified a generation of children. And he also single-handedly took down the Potter family. So, Voldemort. And then last but not least, the tornadoes from Twister. On my honorable mention.
So, I don't want to spend too much time on your honorable mentions list, but Voldemort. I saw a tweet about Voldemort the other day that really just kind of bothered me. And it was like, I know that Harry Potter, like, repelled the magic. Mm-hmm. But it's like, as an infant, like, couldn't you have just picked him up and yeeted him against the wall? Like, what's going on here, Voldemort?
He was like, well, tried.
Like,
was out.
Maybe magic is not the solution to every problem.
Maybe sometimes.
Just punt the baby.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? But,
it's okay. What's your number 5, Gilbert?
All right, so my number 5 is Agent Smith from The Matrix. So I know that seems weird now, seeing how that series finished out. But like when I originally saw The Matrix, and there was the concept of these dudes that could just morph into anybody that was near you. Yeah. Like that was gangster. And then plus just the fight scenes with Agent Smith, like how they move all quick and stuff, like that was dope. He was also like terrifying in certain ways. What good is a phone call if you can't speak? Lit. I remember Agent Smith terrifying me as a child. All right, another thing that terrified me as a child is my number 5. This is going to be very, very specific. It's fine. So if you know the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, do you remember Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Gilbert? Yep. Well, that's one of my favorite childhood movies of all time. But the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So in this movie, there's multiple antagonists, but there was literally a man who walked around with a cage, like a dog catcher cage, like animal control cage that was disguised as a wagon, and he was snatching up children, like literally putting them in the back of the cage. And it's like looking back at it now, like as an adult that was looking at this kid's movie, that's terrifying. It is terrifying. But when I was younger, like I was low-key scared. Like he literally lured the kids in with like candy, like ushered them in, like we're gonna go play with the toys, kids, and would lock them in cages. It is creepy.
And he was the child catcher.
It's very
so
creepy.
That's my number 5, the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
My number 4, I was gonna play the speech, but I'm not going to. But there is a scene in Lord of the Rings where Smeagol is trying to get Gollum to go away. Okay. And he was like, go away and never come back. But that scene was terrifying to me. Just because he was schizophrenic, like he was talking to himself. But Gollum is my number 4. Okay. I think he's one of my favorite villains ever. Just because he's such an unassuming villain. But Gollum was super evil. And there's something about the fact that Smeagol wasn't evil. So there's something about the fact of having like this evil being that's trying to destroy everything that you want, like be inside of you. But what's your number 4?
Fair. So my number 4, all of mine is so super specific. My number 4 are the sharks from Deep Blue Sea. Don't make that face, Gilbert. So let's talk about it. So Deep Blue Sea, love that movie. Think about it, Gilbert.
Deep blue, my head is like a shark's fin.
Oh my gosh, hello. These sharks had an increased brain capacity, Gilbert. Like, I think she increased it by like times 7 or something like that. Why are you dismissing me right now?
I'm saying.
So you tell me you want to be somewhere with 3 sharks that have ridiculous above average intelligence.
I don't want to be anywhere with any kind of shark.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be in the general vicinity of like a shark in a cage, let alone a shark that can get out of the cage, a shark that could flood a entire facility just to get out into the deep blue.
That movie was so bad.
It's literally the premise is ridiculous. it's the goofiest of movies, but I love it. Do you understand? So my number 4 are the sharks from the deep blue sea.
My number 3 is one that should not surprise anybody that likes superhero movies, but my number 3 is Heath Ledger's iteration of the Joker.
Oh.
Like, there's no explanation for it. If you've seen The Dark Knight and you saw that performance, it's just watch the scene in the hospital where he talks about being an agent of chaos, and then he just gleefully skips away from an exploding hospital. Like, it's, or even, first of all, The Dark Knight, that opening scene, that is one of the best opening scenes in cinematic history.
Oh, hands down. I'm just gonna jump in because the Joker is also my number 3.
Oh, dope.
So, hands down, one of the best entrance scenes ever. Heath Ledger, man, was phenomenal in that performance.
Yep.
Phenomenal. Like, I think about, I remember how like he changed the game with the magic trick, make this pencil disappear. But even that was terrifying. It was so great. Like, there were times where you found yourself like not rooting for the Joker, but like rooting for the Joker just to see his shenanigans and what he was capable of. I'm mad that Heath Ledger,
Yeah, man, R.I.P.
Because he could have done some amazing things.
So my number 2
Twosies
is Detective Alfonso Harris.
Who's that?
Denzel Washington's character in Training Day.
That's right.
King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
Here we go.
When he looked at that poor rookie cop and said, "I didn't know you got wet."
Training Day is so
Did you just what? Are you serious right now?
It's fine.
Like that. First of all, Training Day is an amazing movie, but Denzel's performance in that movie was.
But it makes you feel some kind of way because of Denzel.
It was incredible.
He's not supposed to be that way.
But he was incredible.
He was. But Denzel's supposed to be the good guy always.
No. What's your number 2?
So my number 2 is Scar from The Lion King. You were gonna stop judging my picks.
I thought about Scar from The Lion King.
Scar was almost my number 1, but my number 1 is very special. So Scar is terrifying. Now, understand The Lion King is based off of Hamlet, but that's neither here nor there right now. Scar literally devised a plan, or he was like, "I'm about to kill my brother."
That is terrifying, Loki.
And then murder my nephew so that I can have the throne. And then proceeded to do that.
Relatively successful.
Like very successful. Yeah. To be real, to Scar's knowledge, his plan worked. The hyenas are the ones that tripped up because they lied. Does that make sense?
That is true.
But that scene where Mufasa died, I still cry. But the fact that Scar, like, even after Simba returns, Scar's still in Simba's head. Like, when they're, like, looping around, he's like, "I admit it was you." But it wasn't Simba. But Scar was manipulative enough to make Simba, after all that time, still feel like he killed his dad.
That's true. Scar's a good pick. I'm not mad at it.
I love Scar. So Scar's my number 2, man. All right, here we go. What's your number 1, Gilbert?
My number 1 is Anakin Skywalker.
I don't think you mean Anakin.
Anakin Skywalker is my number 1, because I'm not just saying Darth Vader. I'm not just saying Darth Vader. Just the whole comprisal of that character, like starting with Attack on the Clones, going all the way through Revenge of the Sith, like seeing his demise and his plunge into darkness, like, is fantastic to me. Like, Darth Vader by himself is not a particularly great villain just based on the movies.
Okay.
But I don't know. He's my favorite villain when you put it all together. And I'm also a Star Wars nerd, so there's that.
Fair. All right. So my number 1. This is still a fairly recent movie, but I think it needs to It needs to be said. My number one are the Armitages / any of the white people from Get Out. The Get Out family. I think those are the best movie villains. I think that plan to snatch up bodies,
to steal young black
bodies is terrifying, and that movie terrifies me. Like the microaggression scene where they're like taking Chris through all of the like different people and they're introducing him to him and they're sizing him up. I had to watch that movie a second time to catch how disturbing that was.
I haven't watched it a second time. Maybe I should.
Oh, so maybe I just realized we haven't talked about Get Out on the podcast, I don't think. But just how terrifying that scene was, to the silent auction for Chris.
Oh, the silent auction was true.
Like,
that's a good pick, sis.
Everything in that movie, like, everyone is terrifying. Everything. So that's literally my worst nightmare. So the Armitages was the family name, but AKA the white people from Get Out.
That's a good pick.
It's my number one.
So let us know what your favorite movie villains of all time are. Hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at the EBS Podcast, or
EBS.
Give us an email at educatedblacksibling@gmail.com. Specifically, if you live in Poland, Canada, or North Korea and you're listening to the podcast, please reach out to us. You can send us a direct message on Twitter or send us an email. We don't have any Russian listeners that I know of yet.
Bet money we're going to have.
You will never hear this podcast again. But this has been the 15th episode of the EBS Podcast.
What are you doing?
It's a vibe. I'm lighting.
I thought you were setting the mic on fire.
No, I'm lighting my
If you burn my apartment down, I'm going to be mad. EBS. That's the end of our podcast. We talked about all of...
It's a vibe.
This is the wrong vibe we want to set. The listeners have checked out. And that incense is making my nostrils burn. We're done.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the EBS Podcast.
It's over.
This has been episode 15. We are educated. We are black.
Put the incense out.
And we are siblings. And today, the strength of the 15th episode has been stripped away.